You're listening to And This Is Why I Love Comics.
Andy and Mike!
Me.
Yeah. The Human Torch failed to get a bank loan. And why do we like comics? Tell me, Andy.
And thanks for coming back to And This Is Why I Love Comics podcast. I'm Andy.
And I'm Mike.
And we're back again. We're going to chat away about some issue. We picked this out. Did you pick this out? I didn't pick. I never picked this out.
I think I hinted at it at some point, but then we decided to make it, instead of a hint, we actually followed through.
We're going to talk about Final Crisis by DC Comics. It's 7 issues, although there was plenty of crossovers and tie-in issues for this. Published by DC Comics, cover date of July 2008, but it was on sale in May of 2008. Each issue was $3.99, I believe. The page count
worth every penny.
40, with the page count of 40 pages. That's awesome.
Yeah, you got quite your dollar's worth.
That's right. Writer was Grant Morrison. The artist was Jeff G. Jones and Carlos Pacheco. And who else was it? Doug Moch. Moch. A bunch of inkers. No, Doug Monk. Mahnke. How do you pronounce that?
It's probably like, Mink.
Doug
We're
Mink.
trying to. If it's got a consonant in it, you got to say it. So it's like Monk.
Right. Yeah, Monk.
It's
Colorist
like
Alex Sinclair. Rob Lay was the letterer. Thanks, Mike's Amazing World, for all the information I'm pulling off from this. Editor was Eddie Berganza.
Yeah, who had probably the hardest time in the comic book world at that, trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah, I would think so. I can sense your description, your opinion of this episode or this issue.
Yeah, my bias is already showing through.
Right. It's already peeking out. It's like you lifted up the covers a little bit and your eyes are showing. There's no hiding it. Actually, I realized as I was reading this, and I'll get to my impressions of this as well. I realized that this Final Crisis and I have history that I forgot about. I used to go every week to the allergist and get an allergy shot. And during this time of the 7 issues, at some point, I think it was issue 3 or 4, I had my one and only bad reaction to an allergy shot as I was at the doctor's office. And because I would bring these issues and read them while I was waiting, and after an allergy shot you have to wait another 15 minutes to see if you have a reaction to the shot. I'm allergic to cats and dogs and trees and stuff, but
life in general,
air, dust. And I realized that issue 3 or 4, I think it was 3, I was reading this issue in the doctor's office waiting room, and I suddenly had trouble breathing, and I got all tingly and knew I was having a reaction and had to get some adrenaline shot in me so that it'd work its way out in my system. It was kind of a scary moment, and I do remember I never, after the crisis of my own, I never went back and got my issue, so it was in the waiting room and somebody else, I'm sure, picked it up. So I had to
funny book.
I had to re-buy it about a month later after I realized I'm never going to get that back. That was a moment in my time, and this crisis became a crisis for myself. And I just thought, that's a weird memory to have, but it does tie into this story. And it kind of set it in my timeline of my life, of where I was.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if it's like, when people have that moment where like, what did I eat right before I threw up? Because I'm never going to eat that again.
Snickers.
And it's like, so it's like, my brother is that way with ginger ale. he cannot, even the smell of ginger ale is like, nope. Because he always associates that if you're sick, here's some saltine crackers and some ginger ale. That'll help calm your stomach. And just that association ruins it. So I kind of wonder, it's like the association of this comic with that allergic reaction, is that kind of ruining it on your end?
Probably. My overall impressions, from
Soured
what
a little
I
bit?
remember, I don't remember liking this series when it first came out. And it's probably for the same reason, for the same points that I don't like it now. But I enjoyed it 10 times more this time as I read it than I did back then. Like, reading this issue, this series again, I was pleasantly surprised of how excited I was, like, to turn the page and see what happened next, because I had no memory of what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the art was great. Sometimes it was confusing. That's a general statement about the whole series, but sometimes the art was confusing on what was going on in the writing and the art. I really think this series should have been 10 issues, and we should have let Grant Morrison expound on some of his ideas a little more and be able to put it in this series, because I think the weakness of this series was 7 issues. He has so many ideas and throws it all into there, and sometimes it's just a sentence and you go, what? And then it moves on to something else. And having read a couple of the tie-in issues, sometimes it ties into the other tie-in issues, but sometimes it's just like, where did he pull that from? What was going on? And like, I read some sentences a couple times and I still didn't understand what was going on. And probably the artist was doing the same thing, like, what do I need to put in this panel? But they did their best, and there was a lot of side series, but I really think Grant should have had a few more issues to really just, because especially at the end, it was one issue here, and then the next issue, it was like the last issue, it was just way out there. Always got to wrap it up. It should have been like 2 issues or an extra giant size issue or something, because there was just so much crammed into that last issue, and a lot of it was looked over or just put in a panel, like, oh, we got to move on to the next, and then move on to the next. Turning the page, issue to issue, page by page, I was pleasantly surprised, and I actually really liked this series. It made me, when I was at the comic store the other day, I saw some cheap tie-in issues, and I bought those too, and I read those, and those were pretty good too. So, I'm not sure what's happening to me. Do I like Grant Morrison?
Yeah, there was a lot going on. I will agree with you. It felt like, I don't know if you watched that Game of Thrones, but where every season up to the last felt pretty like, oh man, this is all leading somewhere. And it was well paced. You really felt like the characters, but then that last season was like, just, we got to resolve everything. Every episode of Game of Thrones wrapped something up. Boom, 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 boom. And they did like 6 episodes and it was done. I was like, well, that was garbage. It really didn't work, because they try to fix everything in those few, and that's what it felt a little bit like here. Was like he paced himself really well in these first few issues, and then just had to like, okay, we're throwing the kitchen sink and then some at the very last. And some moments that were really supposed to be super dramatic that could have been like the end of the issue were kind of like, nope, we're just shoving that right in the middle of it, and there's still more to go. Now, the only other thing, and this is, I'll lodge this complaint against the series in a couple of aspects. One, I have no idea who, like, maybe 70% of the characters are. And there is no, like, let's tell you who these characters are, or let's give you just a little bit more in depth. But it's like, there's a lot of this book hinges on the assumption that who's who in the DC universe. Like, if I didn't know who some of these people were or any of the history of them, maybe I wouldn't have read this title to begin with. So it was like, clearly it was not a jumping on point for fans.
No, it was not.
You really had to have already known everything there was to know about the DC universe when this thing happened. Because I go back to the original Crisis, the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and while they were showcasing all these different characters, they didn't, integrate the characters per se. It was more like, hey, look at this cool character from this Earth, and we're going to wipe them out. So they didn't, it was just kind of like a cameo, and then they were done. Here, they dive into like having full blown conversations with these characters, and they really build it up into the point where you're like, what? Who are these people, and why am I? Should I be aware of who these people are, or what's going on? And so, like that whole Japanese superhero team, did they exist outside of this series, or were they invented just for this series?
They did branch off into their own series briefly. I think it was maybe a Final Crisis tie-in. It was called the Big Ten. You know, a couple of them may have been seen before. I'm not the super expert on that group. I'm trying to think back when, according to the wiki page, I did a little research on it. You know, Grant Morrison pitched this Hyper Crisis crossover, and then those ideas, when it didn't happen, some of it went into Seven Soldiers that he wrote, and then All Star Superman, and then 52 was the series, the weekly series that came out, and then the rest went into Final Crisis. So a lot of it was ideas he had that just didn't fit somewhere else, and then he used it for this, and maybe that group was one of them. I'm not sure the origin of how he came to this group.
Yeah, because that was the second part of what I was going to bring up, was the Frankenstein character, or Frankenstein's monster. I think they just refer to him as Frankenstein in this.
They do, yeah.
That character, I remembered him from that Seven Soldiers series.
Yep.
But I never saw him before or after.
It might have been that he showed up previously, and Grant Morrison does pull from really old issues from the 70s and stuff, so he might have pulled that. I think that's his creation, just using a character that's probably in the public domain now,
yeah.
So he can do what he wants with it and then just make it his own. But yeah, I read some of the Seven Soldiers and enjoyed what I read. The Zatanna series was good, and the Shining Knight was good, but I didn't get all those at the time. I think I was pretty broke, so I didn't pursue any of that, but what I did read was pretty good. And 52, I did collect that. Like, this was, 2004, 2005, up to 2008, and I would think, like, 2000 I stopped collecting for a while, and then I started again around this time, and really enjoyed what they were doing. Like, this part, I have it in my notes here that I was going to bring up later, but this part of DC, it was in my opinion the best they had been since the early 80s, since the first Crisis. This was DC on fire with a bunch of ideas. They were just going at it. 52 Final Crisis was, after I've read it this time, I thought it was pretty good. After this was Blackest Night with Green Lantern, an event for Green Lantern, and that was really good. They were doing weekly series. They did a countdown to Final Crisis, which wasn't as good as 52, but it kind of led up into this series. They were just, I was excited to collect comics at the time again, and everything I read, like in my notes, it was because of the Question. The character for the Question was Montoya.
Yeah, from the detective.
Yeah, and it was the female Question, and she had become the Question in the 52 series, which Grant also helped write. And I just loved, how sometimes it seems they force a character into a different gender. This was very natural. It flowed over the series, and she just was a perfect fit, and the character was great. And I was excited to see her again in this series and in some of the tie-ins. And that's kind of what led me to my brain. I really liked DC at this time. Like, they were very successful in my opinion. And then right after they were really successful, they did the New 52, and it just
collapsed.
I see no reason why they did that when, in my opinion, DC was the best it's been, And then they just killed their own momentum and started over, and that's actually when I just went, okay, I'm good. I don't have to get any more comics.
Yeah, keeping current issues coming in. I hadn't bought any new issues. I'm trying to think, like, when did I stop kind of getting... But a lot of this stuff I was already like, yeah, you lost me. That version of Frankenstein that was clearly in there, it was Grant Morrison's version of Frankenstein. And the take on all these different characters. And I don't know if that Libra character was somebody of note back in the.
He was an old JLA villain who really was insignificant, and Grant used him more significantly than anybody else did. But yeah, he was a surprise character that really had nothing. He was, as far as I know, he had no association with the New Gods prior to this. So
Yeah, and that's where I was just like, man, there's a lot of characters that I was like, I have no idea who these people are.
yeah, are we doing a New Gods podcast? Because we seem to. This is the second.
When it's related to DC, apparently that's what we got
Right.
available to us.
We're following Jack Kirby's prominent characters, I guess. Yeah, I was surprised to open the page and there's Metron. Hey, he's still sitting in that chair. That's this dude sits in the chair a lot.
Yeah, he needs a standing desk.
Yeah. So he's like the Watcher, but sitting.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of scoots around. It's DC Comics version of, what is that, a Monday morning quarterback or whatever it's called, where it's just like, yep, you just observe, make observations. You shouldn't have done it that way.
Yeah. One thing I do like about Grant, he thinks about the entire picture. It starts out with Anthro, the K-Boy, and then it ends, the story ends, and it kind of brings him back to Anthro as an old man in the cave, and it's kind of neat how he ties it all in. He obviously smokes a lot of weed or something to think about all this stuff.
Yes.
But he is a careful writer, and he is very creative. He's no Jim Starlin, but he certainly have a new respect for him, even though he writes confusing, whether it's a limit of issues or that's just the way he writes. He does think outside the box. I mean, he killed Orion with a radian bullet from the future.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that was necessary to be that grand of a plot to kill Orion.
But it was a good basis for a mystery, though. And I think that's what, to me was the whole pretext of this. Wasn't like, we've got to save the universe and we all know it. It was like, it starts off small, somewhat small. I mean, the death of a new god. I don't know how small that really is. But then it's like, okay, so then they unravel. Like, how did that happen? How did this happen? And then as they discover more and more, other things come to light. And then you see that it's actually a much, much bigger picture of things going on that is destroying the entirety of the multiverse, and it's using every aspect of the DC universe to kind of culminate around that central thought, that central conceit. And so I thought that was a clever way of doing it, because like with the original Crisis, again, because they both have the name Crisis in it, it obviously lends itself to that comparison. The original Crisis was like, all the universes are collapsing. Very, very straightforward. We have to stop this Anti-Monitor from destroying all the universes. And they all gather together, all the heroes and everybody, and they fight, and they stop it from happening. And that's pretty straightforward. Not to discount that series, but it was pretty much like by the numbers.
Yeah. There was one thing I didn't like about Grant's ideas. It was that the Monitors were suddenly a group of individuals, like the Watchers, and they were all assigned to an Earth. Like, it was the Crisis on Infinite Earths. There was one Monitor, and then there was the Anti-Monitor. And this idea that suddenly we got to branch out and have them be this universal, they observed and stuff like that. I didn't buy that. Yeah, it was just, you can have a multiverse without, an overseeing organization of. It just doesn't. It wasn't necessary in my mind.
Well, it kind of, again, it goes back, and this is my biggest grief, and I know this is going to go against a lot of fans of it, but my biggest grief about Jeff Johns' run on Green Lantern is that rainbow, the Skittles of lanterns. I didn't like the fact that all of a sudden everybody's got a ring. So in doing so, you just diminished Hal Jordan, because everybody's got a ring. Hal Jordan, his one thing is that he's got that ring. the most powerful weapon in the universe. Well, nope. He's not the only one. We have orange lanterns. We have pink lanterns. We have green lanterns. We have turquoise lanterns. We have... Everybody's got a ring. And it's just like...
You get a ring, and you get a ring.
Yeah, exactly. So it just becomes very much like Hal Jordan's no longer special because it doesn't matter. And then especially, and you noted, that the Blackest Night and those series, while they were monumental, they just, again, it just made it seem like, well, Hal Jordan, sorry, you're just one of many ring bearers.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, I enjoyed Blackest Night, and I enjoyed having this universe of other colored rings, but I always in the background knew that once this storyline was done, like once this Blackest Night and then the repercussions of that, I always knew that you just muddied the water, and you can only tell so many stories without it suddenly being, well, he'll just pick up a different colored ring, or suddenly, like you said, there's 1,000 different ring carriers that suddenly the Green Lantern ring is just one of many. Now, I enjoyed the story as it was playing out, but I always thought, where do you go after that,
Yeah. And that's what I think Alan Moore did a fantastic job with Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. I think that was the name of it, the final Superman story. But it was like, that worked so well because it was going to be the final story. You could tell what was going to happen to the end. What was the Brainiac Luthor team? What was going to be the last thing? And if that was like the last Green Lantern story, then that would have made perfect sense to have the ending of it being like, there's all these people with all these rings, and then that was the end of it. If we all have rings and we need to eliminate all the rings, these things are too powerful to have, because they keep referencing the rings as being the most powerful in the universe. Well, if there's 5,000, if not an infinite number of these rings, they can't really be that powerful because everybody's got one. It's like my Aunt Mildy's got one.
In this 7 issues, there was never enough time to hit on any of these plots, and I realized that's what gets you to go to the other series. And the Rage of the Red Lantern was a Final Crisis tie-in, and like the Alpha Lanterns were big in the current Green Lantern series at the time, so that wasn't anything new. I always felt like there was this build-up and this treachery where Hal was incriminated, set up to be the fall guy on killing Orion. There was all this build-up, and then towards the end of the series, he gets the ring back. We figure out that the Alpha Lantern was inhabited by Granny Goodness's body or creature.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, Alpha Lantern, which I've never heard of Alpha Lanterns.
Yeah.
Was that like a legit thing, or?
Yeah, it was. They just, it was a legit. Jeff Johns had just, he was building up to this Blackest Night story, and his Green Lantern is really good. He had introduced the Alpha Lantern that the Guardians had implemented as they were writing new rules up. It was never my favorite aspect of the Guardians' new rules and things that Jeff Johns introduced. Like, it was always like, oh, okay.
Yeah, again, this was a case of I didn't know anything about what was going on in the DC universe, so to me it's like, what the heck? Who are these people? Why is this significant? Did he just create this whole cloth for this series, or was there always something in play like that? So
well, I'm trying to figure out why it started out with Orion getting shot, but why was he the only new god not in a new body?
Yeah. No, did any of the other new gods themselves, Apocalypse all came back in a new body, but did the new gods come back?
You're right.
Oh yeah,
I kept thinking
Metron kind of did, because of the tattooed man.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, was Metron the tattooed man? Because I always thought he was the other guy with the Rubik's Cube in the wheelchair.
Man. See, again, it was so dense.
It was.
You couldn't tell the flavors
So
anymore. So
Metron was, and Mr. Miracle wasn't in Shiloh's body, because Shiloh was a different Mr. Miracle. So I'm not sure, now that you say that, if any of the good guys other than Metron were in bodies, and then why Why would only the evil gods
Yeah.
suddenly go into the human bodies?
Did it have to do? And this is just again speculation, but I keep asking, like, was there another series? Was there something else that was running that showed the death and the final victory, or whatever it was that had it where they all died?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because it's like they were just like, yep, Darkseid died, and he's now being reincarnated, and Desaad is now in Mary Marvel's body, and it's like all of them got reincarnated of sorts in other bodies and forms, and not quite following.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And maybe, like, if I read 52 again, or one of those series, because 52 was when Mary Marvel became evil. But I don't recall that it was because she was possessed by a new god. I think that was a part of this series, but not that. But maybe it was. I don't know. It's been a while since I've read that.
And I'm fine with picking up midstream on a story. It's just when it's so vague, or you feel as if you're missing like a key ingredient.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what is it? Something's just not spelling out for me. And to go back to that point of maybe it was just simply that I needed to read all the other issues leading to this as like a prelude to it, or a guidebook to,
like, maybe you're right, maybe you did need to read some of that, but I also feel like that's a failing of this series, is you couldn't go into it and just enjoy it. I mean, I did, and maybe you enjoyed some of it too, but you couldn't go in and just be introduced to all these things and have it explained to you. And I don't mean like, everything, but there was a lot that was not explained, and you just had to ride the wave. And that's fun for a bit, but there's also a point where you're more confused than you're supposed to be, or that the author thinks you will be.
yeah.
Like, in my opinion, that doesn't make a good series. If you come out of it wondering what happened in the series.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine if you're watching a David Lynch film.
Yeah, when you have to read the wiki page just to maybe understand it better, and I did, and I'm reading this going, oh, is that why Darkseid died? And it starts out when the initial plot says, following the final battle of the new gods, the spirit Darkseid tumbles through time itself, coming to rest on Earth, where it, along with the spirits of other evil gods, manifests itself in the body of a human. Darkseid's fall has sundered reality, creating a singularity at the heart of creation, into which all of space and time are slowly being drawn. Like, I get some of that, but there's some of that where I'm like, oh, is that what they meant by this line, or this line here? Okay, great. But I shouldn't have to read the wiki page to get it.
Yeah. I will read authors that are much more the use of the English language is far beyond my understanding.
Yeah.
And that I'll just like, okay, I'll scratch that up to being like, I'm not that smart.
Yeah.
But this was like, okay, are you trying to be so clever that at the point where it's like you're losing the fans?
Right, yeah, clever. That's a good word. Like, he's trying to be so good that it's not good.
Yeah, you just overstepped.
Yeah. Well, it's like both of us reading Dresden Files, and you skipping a book and reading it. Jim Butcher really goes out of his way to catch you up on things. Like, the first 6 books of the series, he describes his car, the Beetle, the Blue Beetle,
Yeah, every chance he
1,000
gets.
times. Every time. Like, he wants you to know, even if you didn't read the last book, that this book is, or that his car is this way and this color, and here's why. And you could have skipped the first 5 books and you would still understand his house, his car, his power set, where he came from. Like, every time, every book, he repeats it. And in some ways, it's very repetitive. But in some ways, it's comfort. It's okay, this is this character. And he points it out every novel, so you understand exactly.
First time readers.
Yep. And in some way, Grant Morrison assumes you know everything about the DC more than him,
Yeah.
and you'll understand his little winks and side characters, and or he doesn't care. Like he's just gonna write for himself, and maybe there's some of that too. But
Well, let me ask the ultimate question then. Obviously you said you read it back in the day, and then you read it again for this particular podcast. Did you read it one more time to try to gather more understanding? Like, okay, now that I read it through once, I'm reading through it again, and I'm picking up a little bit more pieces.
yes, I read it twice for this podcast.
Okay,
And I did piece together things a little better. There were still some things where I either felt it was in a side tie-in that I didn't get, although I've read a few of them now, and there's a couple of tie-in issues that seemed like that was never in the main story. Why is this even an issue, with connected to it? But I think that all the tie-ins were good anyway. But I had to connect some dots and just go, okay, that one line was supposed to fill me in on all this, and I was, I'll just go with it, whatever. Martian Manhunter dies, and it takes a couple panels to do it. The first issue, it really is, it's a good issue to start. It introduces the characters that you are gonna follow, like the Question, and Hal and John are important in the beginning, less so later on. I'm not sure why they find Metron's chair in a junkyard. Like, what was it doing there? You had these Dr. Light and Mirror Master take out a bunch of characters that I had no clue who they were.
Yeah, disposable red shirts.
And that's fine, And then you had the Secret Society, and the
Legion of Doom
talking with Libra. It goes through and introduces you to the main characters.
And I would have been fine if those were all the main characters and you spent the 7 issues covering all those characters. But when it jumps into the next issue and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, let's introduce a bunch of people from Japan, and let's introduce a bunch of people. The next issue, we're going to introduce a bunch of other people, and you're just like, holy sweet Moses.
Right.
It's like you need a playbook just to follow, like, who's on first,
Yeah, they introduced the Chinese super team, the Big Ten. Mr. Miracle, Shiloh, is walking around being a recruiter. Like, I'm not sure why he's being used in that
capacity.
role.
Yeah.
And then, you have the Dark Side Club, which I think was introduced previously. This Monitor group is kind of annoying. And you wanted to feel like they were going to be important, but it seemed like Banished Monitor only shows up again at the end. Like he was around. Like they gave him a page or two an issue where he was struggling to find out who he was and stuff. But then you're thinking, okay, I know you're building up to something, but you're only using a couple panels, and I'm supposed to like this character or feel sympathetic for this character, and then he shows up at the end and helps, I guess, towards the end.
Wrap it up.
Here's the big all-powerful Monitor. For him, he was kind of shoehorned in. I didn't feel like you could have done the story without him, with a little modification.
Next thought was, this is 7 issues to tell this story. And if you were to get them in the floppy editions, like every month you went to the shop, bought this issue, read it, wait a month to get the next story, and then at the end, now more than a half a year later, you read that last issue and they reintroduce that Monitor in Exile character. Would you remember, that character with these like characters that finally come back, and it's like the payoff? Would it be a payoff if you didn't remember any of these characters up to that point, where it's like, oh, that was that character from now 6 months ago they came in? Because it's one thing to read this now in a collected edition that I could kind of zip through, so to speak, and even then I'm reading it back to back to back, and I was still struggling. I can't imagine what it was like as a monthly reader of this title, going like, okay, can't wait till next month, because, well, crap, they didn't address any of the issues that month. It's now they moved on to the new issues, and it doesn't all come together until the very, very end. And then it's like, oh, and then would you remember all the subtle nuances? To your point where Grant Morrison loves to put these little, subtle clues in there. And it's like, yeah, but you're also asking somebody to read this over a span of months, trying to find that how to make that clue work, pay off. Now, how long did they keep Martian Manhunter dead after this series?
He came back for Blackest Night.
Oh, well, that was quick.
Yeah. But, I mean, that was the point of Blackest Night, was DC was killing all these characters off so that Blackest Night could bring them back as a zombie-type Black Ring character. Like, that was the point of Blackest Night, is it would raise all the dead, and then you'd have all these characters attack the live characters, and it made the story better because you actually saw characters that you cared about, but you also knew towards the end they're probably going to resurrect all these guys at once.
The ones that seem to be of value.
Yeah. I mean, I did like, during the Martian Manhunter's funeral, Superman said, "Pray for a resurrection." Like, if you think in the DC universe, most of the people at the funeral had died once or twice and come back. Superman, Green Arrow, Batman.
True.
A bunch of these, Hal Jordan, all these characters had died before, so, death isn't necessarily an ending for them.
Yeah, they're aware of it.
Batman is taken down
pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes sense. He's a human, and not a whole lot you can do against somebody who's got theoretically one of the most powerful weapons in the universe.
Right. Yeah, issue 2, I was surprised, and they even said this later, why didn't Darkseid use Bruce Wayne, his body? And I liked his comment was, well, he would have fought way too hard for too long, it would have been too tough to become Darkseid in his body, so he chose somebody else.
Yeah, a weaker vessel. Now, was this the official return of Barry Allen, or was there, did he appear somewhere else?
No, this was it. This was the Barry. Now, there was a spin-off of this that explained things a little more. Flash Rebirth brought him back and had some more explanation and stuff. But no, this was the return of Barry Allen. You flip that page and suddenly, like the TV show Flash, he's yelling, "Run, Barry," or "Run, Flash, run."
I don't, like the proverbial take on Forrest Gump, "Run, Forrest, run."
Right. It used to be that there were 3 deaths in comics that they would never bring back. And it was Barry Allen, Bucky Barnes, and Uncle Ben, the 3 Bs. Now, they've brought back 2 of the 3, so,
Uncle Ben's no longer making rice either.
Right, yeah, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Because they brought back Gwen Stacy. I thought that was going to be a forever thing, too. Maybe it's not the Gwen Stacy, but it's a Gwen Stacy. Yeah, Supergirl died in the original Crisis, and they brought her back.
Yeah, they brought back Jason Todd,
Jason Todd,
the Robin we voted to die.
Yeah, that took the longest, or not, I guess technically Bucky Barnes took the longest, but...
Right. Death's not final in comics. I guess that's just a part of the trope of it, so... But Superman can't stop the Daily Planet from exploding. That kind of bugged me. Now, I don't know what kind of bomb it was, so I'm not saying that couldn't have happened. But my biggest grief of that was the explosion blew up like 6 floors, and they described the deaths, and of course Lois isn't dead, Perry isn't dead. None of the people that are
known
in
characters.
the midst of the explosion, a couple of side characters might have died. I find it hard to believe that anybody but Superman would have survived that explosion.
Yeah, because it empties out the side of the building. And I did get a kick out of the fact that somehow he was wearing the full costume underneath that shirt and tie, even the cape.
It folds up, right?
Yeah, apparently very nicely neat. And again, it was a case of, if you didn't know DC Comics, that ending of issue 2 with him saying "run" would mean nothing. It's like, oh, I guess that is the original Flash, I guess.
Oh, look, another Flash.
Yeah, is that the same one we've seen already? Because they're wearing the same costume. What's your thought? This is just me, having drawn comics and understanding that most of these superhero costumes are basically lines drawn on a naked body. It's just like, okay, that's Batman is just a color over basically the skin. That's not really representative of cloth. But for some reason, the artist in particular opted to, like, no one else but just the Flash, indicate how the headpiece was sewn together.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly distracting. Like, there's like this forehead piece that every time they drew the Flash, it was just like, I show that this is a stitch line right here across the forehead. Why?
Some of that is, look, he's the older Flash, so he doesn't have a modern costume, I think, kind of thing, And the two Flash costumes, well, there's three, but the two that are close, they're different in the belt area.
Yeah, one's got a continuous and the other one's kind of got a V or something like
to
that.
Scratch kind of thing, but
ever so subtle Flash. That's why they call him the Flash.
And on my spare time, I color everything flesh colored, so that I enjoy the comics.
Yeah, just give it an ever so subtle hint.
Right, it makes my comic reading more interesting.
I did like the fact that, like, they have one panel for Aquaman.
Yeah, let's get into that.
In the entire series,
there was
even
two panels.
Oh, okay.
There was one. I mean, they were very similar. It was like, here we're telling the story, and look, Aquaman, and then we're telling the story, and look, there's another Aquaman, and that was it. Like
that was it. I thought it was so funny. It's like, here's he's the Lord of the Seven Seas. He's the most powerful Atlantean, King of Atlantis. We're just going to use him to showcase him on his seahorse,
right,
looking at something. Okay, now back to the regularly scheduled program.
Yeah, he was irrelevant, and there was no reason to even have him. Like, why even include those two panels at all? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Just he wasn't there, so let's just ignore him, and that would have been fine. I wouldn't have said, "Hey, I wonder where Aquaman was during this story."
Yeah, it was cool to see, the multi-Flashes, the multi-Green Lanterns, Alan Scott's Green Lantern playing a pivotal role in the series.
Yeah. You read some issues that I haven't read, so let me ask you, when Clark Kent was sitting with Lois, and he was the only one keeping her alive or whatever, who was the lady that came into the room and said, "We must leave now. I know you're secretly Superman. Let's go." Like, as far as I know, I never understood who that person was. Whether it was a monitor.
She was one of the monitors, because I thought she looked Kryptonian.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
In the very first, like when there were all those monitors were there, because of like how when John Byrne and Mignola were doing that World of Krypton, when John Byrne took over the Superman, he had all like the Kryptonians look like this, for that headpiece is what
headdress and
Yep, and that's what threw it. But I guess she's just a monitor that just kind of came in and says, "Okay, you're coming with me." Whereas we're pulling all the supermen of the multiverses together in order. And I don't know, maybe that was intentional to have her look Kryptonian because she was gathering these supermen. So they pull in all the different, like, Ultraman and Mr. Majestic and Shazam and anybody who had slight reference to Superman, the president of whatever Earth it was. That was kind of like the Obama, that Superman. They threw in everybody. Him. Yeah, I can't remember what that character's name is.
He's making a comeback right now.
Yeah, hopefully, if that Michael B. Jordan guy gets the role of Superman, it's like they use that Superman. Yeah, so that monitor just basically gathered all the other Supermen together to kind of help Superman navigate through and that's where that whole Mandark or whatever.
Oh yeah, don't even get me started on that. Where did that come from? But let's wait for that last issue.
Yeah.
Article X. Article X is this important article that Roosevelt used on the All-Star Squadron to gather all the mystery men. And I had never heard of it before. And I have every issue of All-Star Squadron. And I think, okay, that's Grant Morrison's way of saying there's something, some bylaw or whatever that says this is the reason we gather. But I'm sure there was no Article X ever mentioned during any other crisis or invasion, or like, why did you need an Article X to gather people together? Wouldn't you just say, hey, there's a crisis coming, come join us, just like the last 50 times that we've gathered together?
Yeah, let's evoke it one more time. Yeah, it was kind of like a global bat signal.
The panels where they were talking about Article X and you see different heroes, you see Talkie Tawny asking for a jetpack. You see Supergirl with her cat, and then you see Black Canary and Oliver Queen. And for the life of me, I had to stare at that panel a couple times because I thought Oliver Queen was strapped to the bed every time I looked at it, except the last time. Like, he's just laying down and he's got his arms up in the air. But I swear there was something else going on. Maybe it's because of the way he drew Black Canary. I had to really think, what kind of scene is going on here? Why even?
We jumped to that panel just a few seconds too late.
Right, yeah. And again, I love this. I love the couple. I love Black Canary and Oliver Queen. Like, I think that's, having read old Justice Leagues and how they got together and all this stuff. Like, that's my couple. Anybody who puts Oliver Queen with anybody else is a fool. But it was. I was glad to see that couple again, even though they were together during that time. But like what they've done with Oliver Queen now, each reboot they had them not together for a while, and then realized that people really liked it, so they tried to force it, and it just go back to that old version. DC, come on. Really, it was a bunch of Bendis, their reboots and stuff like that.
Yeah, that kind of group shot. That is like, okay, I'm proud of you, all of you. And it was great in one way. And then, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I don't feel so out of touch
you can name
with the DC universe. I could, yeah. It was like a little bit of like, I know this person, I know that person. And yeah, like you said, there's Aquaman just kind of making a cameo in the background. But I saw one, I go, oh, okay, that's the boxing dude from World War II, like Wildcat.
Yep.
Then I looked over, and then there's another Wildcat.
Yeah.
It's like, is that
that's his
the
son.
same guy? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff Johns does a good job with the JSA. Like, DC used to be about legacies. With the JSA, because a lot of those characters are old,
yes.
You either had to find some way to preserve them so that they could still have adventures, or pass on to the character to their siblings or their kids.
Yeah, child. Yep.
Yeah. So with
Kinda
Wildcat,
like
he's got 9 lives. Literally, he's had used up 7 of them or 6 of them.
Okay.
And then he had a son that he didn't know about, but in the pages of the JSA book, he met him and they fought, and then they reconciled us or whatever. It's pretty good stuff. It made me a JSA fan all over again. But that's where they came from.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and that's kind of tough because it wasn't like Infinity Inc. Wasn't that a title that was basically like all the progeny of the classic superheroes all kind of in one title?
Yeah, and that's where the original kids came from, and then there's been a second wave of kids. Yeah, Jade and Obsidian and Nucleon and
that's right.
Fury, Silver Scarab, Brainwave.
Wasn't it the Sandman? Cause like,
yes,
I remember,
Sandy the Sandman. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that
Star
Neil Gaiman incorporated that Sandy character, or the Sandman, from Infinity Inc. Because it was like he took the Kirby Sandman, and then that Sandman became Infinity Inc. Sandman, so somehow connected
Hector
to that
Hall,
one.
who was actually
right.
Hawkman's son.
Okay, that's right.
Became the Scarab, which then Neil Gaiman used. Yeah, and he used Fury 2, Wonder Woman's daughter, the Earth 2 Wonder Woman, in Sandman 2 for a little bit.
Yeah, and that was kind of like, okay, yeah, because I remembered that character was used in the title. I was like, I knew it was somebody from the Infinity Inc. I didn't know exactly whom, but I knew it was somebody.
Well, Bloodhaven, I guess, was such a rundown mess But for some reason, it was the central area where Darkseid had got his hold.
Yeah, it was most apocalyptic or like
The
apocalypse.
Bunker D or whatever was located there. So a lot of the battles in this series was located there. Wonder Woman visits and gets beaten up by Evil Mary Marvel. I didn't understand this part of the story either. The series seems to imply that any electronic device is changed by Darkseid's people to brainwash you, and you suddenly become this follower of Darkseid. But for some reason, they had to get Wonder Woman to be a disease carrier. Like while they battled, she became this carrier of some disease. But what did that do?
Deliveries.
I'm not sure what that did compared to the other thing. And then in a different series, they talked about how there was this disease or this virus also going around that was taking away superhero powers, like the metagene power. So I don't know if that was that, but you only see it referenced one other time in this series. I didn't see any hero lose their power in this series, but in the tie-in series, which was Resist, which was about Checkmate and Mr. Terrific and Snapper Carr. They used Snapper Carr, which was really cool, an old JLA mascot, who eventually, in the Blaster Special series of all series, it was one shot, he finally gained power where he could, I think it was in the Invasion series, when the metagene bomb was used and all these people who had the metagene suddenly got powers. He suddenly got the power to, when he snapped his fingers, which is of course great because that's what he did. He could teleport. Yep. So they were really using him creatively in the Resist one shot, where he was Mr. Terrific's teleporter who was going around stopping all these Darkseid plans and stuff like that. And then he eventually lost his power, and that was the only mention of this virus that was taking people's powers away. So it was really confusing. Like, there's all these viruses and brainwashing, and some people resisted and some people didn't. And I understand you want to make it important, but there was just so much going on. Like, I guess this is the theme of this series for us. There was just so much going on, and it was too much. It was just, or not enough issues to explain it. Like, that's my quandary. Is
you wonder, was it always intended to be just 7 issues, which is a weird number? Was he really saying, like, I can do this in 6 issues? And then it turned out like, crap, I need one more. Can I get one more? Yeah, one more. We'll give you that, but no more. It's like, okay. One other issue was, like, so many of the characters were being introduced partway through the series. So, to your point, like, the technology gets introduced, and it's causing people to, become anti-life equations.
Wait, the anti-life equation, isn't that a creature that can send aspects into different universes, galaxy parts, and then destroy them with the same bomb? Isn't that...
Apparently Grant Morrison was not a fan of Cosmic Odyssey, because read it as being something different. Yeah. But then they introduced this character, the Ray, and it's like, where was this character at the beginning of the series? All of a sudden he just shows up.
Yeah, the Ray, I've always liked that character. He was originally a freedom fighter character in World War II. Actually, it was on another Earth, where the Nazis won the war, and him and Uncle Sam and Black Condor and Phantom Lady.
Oh, that's right.
But they were also in the All-Star Squadron. But this character is not that character. It's, a legacy character. I forget how they were related, if they were. But this character, I really like the way he used him and the Tattooed Man in this story. But yeah, I can see, like, they never show him until Carlos Pacheco gets a hold of him in issue 4. Which I really like Carlos Pacheco's art. We haven't talked a lot about the art except at the beginning. Of all the artists here, J.G. Jones probably my least favorite. Carlos Pacheco is, for me, ahead of him by far. Although they're very similar. And then Doug Monk was pretty good too. I've always liked Carlos Pacheco. I wish he would do a lot more than he does now. There was a couple other series, including Green Lantern, that he did, and I think he can draw anything and it looks good. Kind of similar to George Perez in some ways.
Yeah, lots of detail.
Yep.
Very consistent. Now, jumping probably a little bit ahead, but there is kind of the Days of Future Past headshot gallery.
Yeah, we talked
in
about that in
issue.
a previous episode, and yeah, they had a shot that I was going to mention too. That where they who's missing, who's off world, and who's killed or converted or captured. I love that.
Yeah, it was funny. And I found one that I thought was somewhat interesting, and even most of their expressions are kind of mundane. But the one character, everybody else is either there's only a few where it's like MIA. Most of them are MIA. Some of them are off world. But there's one who has a title that is not applied to anybody else almost, and it's the Uncle Sam character, and it says corrupted. Not to get political, but it makes you wonder. It's like, but did somebody try to make a little, and even that character has a little knowing smile, like, yeah, we know what we're saying here.
And Superman and Batman are MIA. Batman is being tortured. Superman is off world.
Yes, with the monitor that looks like from Krypton.
I'm curious how Alan Scott knows all about these characters. Like, how does he know he's getting all this info from other watchtowers, which are all the bases of heroes that have grouped together to make a last stand, which is kind of neat. Like they had the Hall of
they've gone
Justice,
from the Super Friends, which I thought was brilliant.
the Fortress of Solitude, and
Yep, the Watchtower in space,
Superbia, which was in Justice League.
Gorilla Grodd.
Gorilla Grodd's land, or what's that called? Gorilla City, I think it's just called.
Yeah.
Very creative. Like I don't question Grant's ability to create this wonderful stuff and just throw everything out there, and a lot of it works and is really cool. It's just I think some of it just gets muddied in cramming it all into 7 issues.
Now, what do you think about, and this is going back to the art, but there's a single solitary spot where, and this drives me bonkers, Alex Ross does it, and I can never figure it out, but most heroes, when they put on a mask, their eyes go white. But there is a single frame where you can see Green Arrow's eyes, a single panel.
Okay.
And it just, for some reason, that just drives me bonkers. I know you want to show like surprise and looking over the shoulder, like, what was that? They look over the shoulder, kind of a thing, and all of a sudden it's like, boink, he's got eyeballs.
Right.
And it's like just a few pages after that head shot thing, maybe about like 10 pages after that, when Black Canary is teleporting up to the Watchtower.
Yeah, Green Arrow
And
sacrifices himself and hears something in the distance and turns and you see his eyeballs. Obviously, it doesn't bother me because I didn't notice it until you just said that. So I'm good, but I can see why it might bother you. I think it's just another way to express, and it's just another artistic license.
When needed.
There's a big fight at the Hall of Justice. Green Arrow sacrifices himself. I like that battle. I wish there was a little more of it, actually. He gets taken down by Black Lightning and then is converted to a follower of Darkseid. They have these helmets that they put on these on the heroes, which I guess was made by the Mad Hatter, I think. They couldn't even say this was just apocalyptic technology. They had to tie it into some character, which I think was really necessary, but
well, there is something to be said because, like, the Mad Hatter more or less is a throwaway character. The Marvel end of the spectrum, Molecule Man, was kind of a throwaway Fantastic Four villain until Secret Wars, when it kind of got like, holy crap, that dude is that powerful? Yeah, when you can manipulate things on a molecular level, you are that powerful. And then from that point on, Molecule Man got kind of like some street cred. And I think this is kind of a way of giving the Mad Hatter some street cred in the DC universe. It's like, wow, if he could make helmets that could cause everybody to kind of simply and blindly obey, that all of a sudden makes the Mad Hatter a little bit more of a threat. And I kind of wonder if that's why. And also, instead of it just being like, hey, look, Darkseid made another thing, and Darkseid made another thing. It's like, you're not pulling in the rest. It's one of those things where it's like, everybody needs to get a participation ribbon, and this is Mad Hatter's chance to get a participation ribbon.
Why isn't Iris with the other Flash Widows? Like, she was, and then she wasn't. Like, she's just seen walking down the street, taking her keys out, while everything around her is being, disruptive with police and people with helmets, obviously Darkseid people and anti-life people, and Iris is just walking down the street and goes into her apartment like she's finding her keys in her purse, and I just found that was really out of place. Like once you're become a dark side follower, they haven't shown that you just live out your life and are dark side people. You march in the street and you just are chaos, and then suddenly she's just gonna cook her TV dinner in the microwave.
Yeah.
And sit down and eat. It just seemed really weird.
Yeah, almost as if she's debating like, well, do I want a souffle tonight or do I want
Salisbury steak? And
yeah, it's like, am I really up to cooking tonight or do I just get some takeout? It's like you do realize that everything around you, people are getting mugged, assaulted. There's graffiti everywhere, and she's dip-a-dip-a-doo.
That's right.
Come on in.
I give that a big dark side thumbs down.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's just that she has zero, that may be her, her being as chaotic as she could possibly be.
Right, yeah.
Maybe it's about, not necessarily.
She unbuttoned her top button.
Yeah, it's like, holy, she's showing ankle, people. She's showing ankle. It's like, oh my gosh, the loose morals.
But Barry Allen kisses her, and his touch brings her out of the state back again. I was supposed to feel something more than I did, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's that reunion, but it was kind of nonplussed. It was just all wrapped up in one page and moving on. Got other things to deal with.
Yeah, issue 5 starts out with the Green Lantern's trial of Hal Jordan. And it seems sometimes, even reading this, it seems like the Guardians could get beat by anybody and their mother, There's, they get tricked all the time. For being immortals, they're really kind of idiots. And they hide the battery. Suddenly they can do that. And maybe that's not suddenly. I don't remember them doing it before, but maybe something new they added. And then the Lanterns decide to head towards Earth, but they never seem to get there. Mr. Miracle gets shot and then is reborn. And, not reborn. He had a vest
Mother
on.
box.
But learn from this is if you have a certain design, like even at issue 1, Metron gave Commandy this image, this alphabet letter from the New Gods language, I guess, and it made you immune to the effects of the anti-life virus if you had it on your body. The Tattoo Man had it on his body. I guess Mr. Miracle is telling everybody that they should have it on their body.
I think it's like trying to rationalize everything to the point where you're trying to rationalize Jack Kirby's squiggle designs. And it's like that squiggle design on Mr. Miracle's mask was always there from the very beginning, and there was a reason for it. And then now we explained the reason is that's what kind of wards off the evil.
Battle in Bloodhaven, and Big Bad Mary Marvel fights and wins against Black Adam and Supergirl, and finally is taken down by Freddie Freeman, Captain Marvel. So I don't know where, I do realize where the other Captain Marvel is eventually, but they didn't say anything ever about where he was until the last issue, and he suddenly shows up, but it just seems weird.
They must have tried to wrap up whatever was happening in his title.
Yeah.
It's like, is he back yet? No, not yet. Okay, well, we'll just say he's away.
Right.
Is he back yet? Nope, he's still away. Okay.
So there's a big battle, and a lot of the watchtowers are falling. I do like the Strike Force by the bridge in Bloodhaven. There's a lot of cool characters in that with Hourman and Liberty Bell and the robot Unknown Soldier, Frankenstein leading the way with Jon Stewart and Supergirl, and Rocket Red, I think. Big battle, and I learned that a Rubik's Cube is really a mother box.
That would explain why I was never able to solve it myself.
Right.
I don't think the world was ready for me to have that kind of power, so that's why I was never able to solve it.
No one's ready for that kind of power. Or for you to have that kind of power.
The things I would do with it.
Issue 6 is my favorite issue of the series because the opening pages has Brainiac 5 from the Legion of Superheroes. Finally, the Legion is represented in the Final Crisis. I mean, come on.
Yeah, took its own sweet, sweet time.
Yeah, but now there was a Final Crisis tie-in, the Legion of 5 Worlds, that was going on at the time, and it was drawn beautifully by George Perez, and it was an amazing series, and I would highly recommend that series if you like the Legion. because it combined all the different versions that they have had over the years and kind of made it make more sense. Maybe not all the way, but they tried. I'm not sure why they brought in the Miracle Machine. I mean, I do know why because I've read the last issue, but he shows Superman. Oh, hey, there's Superman. He shows them a brief glimpse of the Miracle Machine, which is an old artifact that they had in old Legion issues. He's supposed to memorize it, and so he can rebuild it in issue 7. Now, that isn't really explained, and you kind of go, huh, okay. It's like the Infinity Gauntlet, but it's a wish machine, you know?
Anything you want. Let me ask a quick question. This stairwell that they're walking down when they introduce these characters in as a group, is that something that has been in Legion quite a bit? Or is that something that was kind of like, hey, this is new for this book?
Well, it certainly has never been depicted quite that way. I'm sure Grant loved just describing it this way. Brainiac 5 has had like Tesseract type dimensions where he puts things and stuff. And so I always assume like that's the vaults that they're going through. But no, I don't remember anything.
Yeah, the reason that I bring it up is that there was, one of my favorite comics probably of all time, series-wise, is Alan Moore's run on Supreme. Mm-hmm. It was Rob Liefeld's character. Alan Moore took it and did a fantastic job, with this and reinvented it. But he, being that Supreme was an analog to Superman, and he had introduced kind of the concept of a legion of superheroes, and instead of them having that ball that would travel through time, mm-hmm. he had a staircase that would spiraled all the way up to the end of time and spiraled all the way down to the beginning of time.
Oh, neat.
And you could walk through that staircase and it'd have doors to different eras and different events.
Well, like it.
And there's and it was brilliantly done, but I'm like going, is this inspired by that, or which one came first? I was like, who took off of who on this idea? And I got a feeling it wasn't probably Grant Morrison, blatantly ripping off Alan Moore, but there may have been at least a heavy influence.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Alan Moore's probably came first for that.
Yeah, and I will say, even though it was kind of weird to have Kyla come back as a tiger, it was great to see how Jack Kirby's reused and connected in different ways. From the Commandy characters, Olmec characters, New Gods characters, all of them kind of coming into play in some capacity in this series.
Yeah, it was really neat. Taki Tawny takes down Calabac because he had a strong T.
Yeah, he's got to tell you about those adventures.
Yeah, and then Taki Tawny becomes like the leader of the Kirby Tigers. They include him. They almost worship him after that battle.
Yep. Basically the alpha of the pack.
Yeah. Calabac I would have expected to have been a little stronger than he was.
Yeah, but maybe in this form, you can kind of forgive him for not being as strong.
I guess compared to the rest of the human New Gods, he was the strongest one of that group. Like all the other ones seemed to have bodies that were slowly degrading.
Yep, weren't able to house him.
Yeah, so I mean his was created by the other. They walk around, I don't know if it was earlier or later, they showed when they were bringing the question through to the Checkmate headquarters, they showed where the Mystics were in this series. They were all trying to find the Spectre. I'll give you a hint, he had his own Final Crisis series. It was called Revelations. And I don't know how it ended because I bought 2 issue 1s and I don't have an issue 5, but
somewhere in that mess.
But it was pretty good. It also had Montoya's question, but that's where he was. But I'm not sure that would have been the best way to have the Mystics, in a real life critical situation. Why were they searching for the Spectre when each one of them was probably more powerful than half of the other heroes involved? But
it's They gotta keep busy.
Right, and it's a way to get the magic off the table, like, because you could do anything with magic. Let's clear that away and just not have any of that foolishness around.
Yeah, because that would easily, like to your point. Oh no, somebody just died. Let's go back in time and fix it. So they didn't die. Ah, okay, that did it. Thanks, good idea.
Good job.
Yeah, way to go, team. The Luther Savannah team was okay, but it seemed kind of like they never really, like, how could they have been tricking this Lieber guy this long? I would have, like, been able to call them out, call their bluff way. You're like, I don't think you guys are really on my team.
Yeah, I always got the impression that he knew they were, but he was waiting for the moment or something, but I don't know. It's hard to tell. And then they take Lieber out, and it's such a short one-page kind of thing.
Zip, and done.
Like, okay, this guy was really important, and then he wasn't.
Zap. Okay, that was it for that.
Yeah, and then zap again. It's issue 6, and they're wrapping things up. And, Mary Marvel changes back, and all these little side things are wrapping up. And I almost feel like, great, this issue 7 is going to be even better. It's going to be super. And then issue 7 is just so out of left field. All of it is. Almost all of that issue is like, where did any of this come from? The thing I liked about issue 6 was suddenly Batman's in costume, shows up with a gun, and he had the bullet in his belt the whole time, and he shoots Darkseid, and Darkseid shoots Batman and kills him.
Yep, dead. 2-page spread. Dead.
Right. I thought he was like tortured for the last 5 issues. Is there any explanation somewhere that says, hey, I got my costume back, and great, here's my belt, and here's the gun that can shoot
the one bullet that's a danger to their kind.
Yeah. I mean, that was a little graspy, but, it's Batman. He can figure things out like that, I guess.
Yeah, I kind of wondered if it had to do more with how many issues had transpired between last time you saw him and this time, and you just kind of go like, oh yeah, he got out in between panels that you never got to see.
And then there's Red Skies. I don't know, I think there was Red Skies earlier, but suddenly there's more Red Skies. They're talking about the humans leaving the Earth, and then Superman shows up because, of course, Superman plays favoritism, and, how many other people died and Superman wasn't anywhere around, but suddenly Batman dies, and he's got to freak out and find the body. It's totally unfair. Super favoritism.
Dead bodies left and right, but somehow he's able to find on the entire planet. And I understand he's got X-ray vision, microscopic vision, telescopic vision, heat vision, all the visions you can hope for. But yeah, he's able to instantly find, without a moment's delay, Batman was over here all along.
Yeah. And then, Batman has a skeleton in the costume, but we find out in issue 7 he was just sent back in time, not to spoil it. Here's our spoil alert. Hey, if you haven't read this series and you've listened all this time and you've now just been spoiled at the ending, I'm very sorry. But
when did this happen?
So whose skeleton was that?
That's a good question. Yeah, somebody was in that body. I think
it
could technically be his body. It's just that, that's his body in present day, but it was also simultaneously shot into the past.
And come to think of it, I think there was this hullabaloo about the skeleton back then when I was reading it too, and they probably explained whose it was, or that it was a fake or something.
Maybe he had it in his utility belt.
Right. Yeah.
Just like that bullet.
Yep.
Things you just store away in there.
And then we get to issue 7. And I'm not sure what we should cover on it because it was so out there.
Yeah.
Some of it, I know there was a 2-issue 3D Superman series that explains kind of the quest to get all the Supermen and the music, the sound that defeats Darkseid, musical note or whatever. I think that's where all that went, that story, but I don't know. Can you explain issue 7 to me? Please?
Yeah. I mean, it was literally like a comic book gumbo. You just threw every ingredient you had into the stew. I still don't know.
There was a cosmic vampire in there that was the father of the monitor that we were following throughout the series for one page an issue.
Yes.
And it was really confusing. Why was there a cosmic vampire, and why was he even related to the monitors, and what was going on?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was reading the deluxe collection, and they actually had that Mandrake.
Oh, good.
They do introduce that character in the 2 issues of the Superman series.
Oh, they do. Okay.
So, not that it makes sense.
Oh,
I'm just saying that they introduce that character.
well, my introduction was issue 7 of the series.
Yeah.
That should have been wrapping up things, and suddenly, for like 3 pages, this weird Dracula type monitor was causing trouble. And then the Green Lantern spiked them.
Yeah. that I think was, so you have all these Supermen. You spend all these issues bringing the Supermen together and having them from all these different multiverses. And I mean, you bring in like ones that you do recognize, like Ultraman or Apollo and Mr. Majestic and the one from Red Sun and some of these other ones. And it's like, okay, yep, I recognize that one. Oh, I know this one. So you feel like, yep, I got it. And they all come together, and then it's actually the Green Lanterns that come out of nowhere, so to speak, and they wrap it all up. Then why did you bring all these Supermen together? And why did you... I mean, they even pulled in Captain Carrot and the Amazing Zoo crew.
I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was great to see those guys, because like, what the heck? But
like, okay, Grant, now, well done, Grant, well done.
Yeah, you pulled in... Yeah, when you have, I can't remember, I know it was Pig Iron, Captain Carrot, and I can't remember what the poodle's name was.
She was the Zatanna.
Yeah, it's like an American Poodle or something like that. You bring all these powerhouses, and it's like, oh my goodness, watch out, this is going to be the fight. And then you bring in, again, the Chinese characters or Japanese characters that were introduced in the first issue. They all started making their way back in there. And there's this huge, like, oh, we're going to take out all these shadow beings. And there's archangels that show up, and they're fighting there. And then it's like, okay, Ultraman is like this flaming mess coming after Superman. And then the Green Lanterns show up and instantly put a spike through him, and he's done. And you're just like, I guess that's that.
Yeah, I'm still trying to process it. I kind of like the way he told the story, like they had already survived, and then they were telling these kids the story of it. So that was kind of neat. But I still don't understand what happened, why people were put into a frozen shrunk bank, the storage thing. You had multiple Earths and times collide. Hey, there's Aquaman again. And and they're building the miracle machine from his memory, which did what, though? Like, what did that do? Is that what they made the tunnel with? Or no, that was his... He made a wish at the end of the story that everyone would be happy.
Brought back, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if the listeners here are as confused about our review as we are of issue 7... we can't help you. Like, that's... You're gonna have to internet dive, and I'm sure there's scholars of the Final Crisis who can explain every panel of every page. But for me, you read 7 issues, it should have a more final...
satisfied
ending that you understand. Now, I don't want to know everything. Like, if you want to throw some mysteries in, or just...
yeah, leave a gap for future stories.
Right, or maybe you missed a couple things that you wanted to include that you didn't. But it shouldn't be half the issue. It shouldn't be... You didn't succeed if your readers are going... If most of your readers, I'm sure there's some people that it clicked with and they loved it. And I like this series more than some other stuff we read. But I shouldn't leave the issue and go... I've read this twice, and I still don't know what half this stuff meant.
Yeah,
or
Yeah.
why this was included and not other thing. Like, I don't know. I liked it. I loved issues 1 through 6 a lot more than 7.
Yeah, and I truly, truly feel as if it was just like, oh, I gotta wrap everything up. I think he was like hoping for 8 issues, and then they're like, I think sales are slowing down. We only have room for 7. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. It was like, let's throw everything we can and try to wrap everything up. Like, why did all these characters exist? Maybe it's because of this and this and this, And why did Captain Carrot only show up in this last issue for a few panels? It just is like just to show how many universes were engaged in this series. Maybe was the vampire character, a reflection that Batman was no longer there, and this was kind of like a bad guy Batman. There was just so many mysteries.
Even reading the wiki, I get to the part where it says, with Darkseid's end, however, the evil behind evil emerges. Mandrak, the Dark Monitor, fallen father of Nixuatan, who waits at the end of all things to consume what remains. And I'm going, what?
Where was that explained?
Right. Why was this only introduced in issue 7? And you just said he was introduced somewhere else. But, like, reading this 7 issues, I had no clue who this thing was and why it suddenly turned like that. Superman uses the solar energy in his own cells to power the miracle machine and makes a wish that is granted by the appearance of an army of supermen from across the multiverse. Yep. In the last 2 pages is Anthro. He dies of old age in his cave. And then Bruce Wayne is there and starts drawing on the cave. So apparently Bruce Wayne is sent back in time and then has his own miniseries where he travels through time. And returns. So don't worry, people. Batman is alive. Which, I mean, if you compare... Okay, so we've read Final Crisis, Cosmic Odyssey, Infinity Gauntlet. I have to say, Infinity Gauntlet was my least favorite. And I would say Final Crisis probably is my favorite. Well, Cosmic Odyssey was so beautiful. But, I'd almost say this is my favorite series we've read so far, except for this last issue, which just really bogs it down.
Yeah, it kind of the boat anchor, just like everything was moving along, sailing along really well, and all of a sudden, poof.
Yeah. Wow, that's really tough. I'm going to say this was my favorite series we've read so far. And it wasn't my favorite drawn. I enjoyed the Carlos Pacheco stuff, but the Mignola stuff so far.
That's the best art we've seen so far.
How would you rank these?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would put this pretty high up there as far as the best of what we've gone through up to this point. I would put it at either number 1 or number 2 because it was a page turner. The art is what kind of gets you through in some cases, but in this one, it was the story, the characters, the potential of what's he going to do with these things? What is he setting up? And that is where I thought this one worked really well and above any of the other ones we've read so far. So deep. It was such a deep well of information to go through. And, where Cosmic Odyssey didn't have the Odyssey, and it didn't have the range of the DC characters. It literally limited it to those 6 characters. 6 heroes, and then equally paired off with 6 from New Genesis. And it's like, this one it fully embraced the entire multiverse of the DC characters. And it's like, who's going to show up next? So I think this is probably the top, just because of the story.
Yeah, this definitely makes me want to read more Grant Morrison. Where reading Cosmic Odyssey and Infinity Gauntlet made me want to not read Jim Starlin.
It put you off to that degree.
It did. I just okay, I've read 2 of his series and didn't enjoy his writing on either one. And while I was confused with Grant Morrison, and I've read other things of his, but I don't have a perfect memory of whether I liked it or not. Although I liked his All-Star Superman, I know I did that, and his 52. Okay, so I do like Grant Morrison. He's just over the top, and that's okay. I'd rather have over the top than be underwhelmed by his stories.
Yeah, because you know there's something. Well, I mean, as asked earlier, and you said, you went back and reread this, and you got more out of it through the second reading. It's one of those things where, not to have a gross analogy, but it's like a cow chewing cud. You bring it back to get more nutrients out of it, and that's what you did with this series. I felt like, wow, each time I went back through it, it's like, oh yeah, okay, now that's making sense. Okay, now I see where he was heading and why he picked what he did. And this character actually had more interplay than I thought. So that definitely kind of worked its way towards it being like, okay, this is great. With the other ones, yeah, you kind of read them. You went like, yep, okay, moving on. I'll never go back and reread. Infinity Gauntlet, I kind of got the gist of it. I knew what I was up against. Didn't need to know anymore. There wasn't anything deeper. It was just very surface level. This one had like so many subtleties, and you just wish that some of these characters had a little bit more. Like, okay, you used that person for what reason? Was that the right choice, or did you just want to try to bump? Like, I keep going back to that Frankenstein character. It's like that was a Grant Morrison, creation that is like, this is going to be a major player in the DC universe, and just never paid off. At least the effort was made to get that character to pay, into that position to do so.
If anything, he tried too much, and some of it didn't work out. Where I think Starlin did a really linear story and didn't try it enough.
Didn't push the boundaries far enough.
And then it was like, bored.
Yeah. No risk and equals no reward either. It's like, okay, well, we all knew right out of the gates, we have 4 solar systems that need to be saved. If we lose 2 of them, we're doomed. And it's like, okay, which one? The proverbial George Carlin joke of Tito, Frito, and
Tito, Chico, and George.
Yeah, tell George to wait.
Tell George to wait.
Classic George Carlin. But back when he was funny, not grumpy old man like we are now.
Right.
I guess we all get to the George Carlin stage. Now we're at that point. But yeah, I mean, this one is like, man, there's so many, and then you go back through it, and you've read it, you looked at the word balloons, and then this second time you go through it, you're actually looking to see, like, I recognize that character. Oh, I know that character in the background. Oh, that's cool. I see the metal men. They weren't anywhere they weren't mentioned, but they were clearly there. Yeah. And it's like, okay, it just shows the scope, and it's kind of fun to test your DC knowledge as well.
But that's our review of Final Crisis. If you have any opinions on it, or we missed something, which I'm sure we did, and want to let us know, please do. We have an email. And this is why I love comics at gmail.com. And we have a Twitter, which will be in our show notes. Thanks for listening. We appreciate all the downloads that we've been getting. And hi to our German friends who are downloading episodes. And I hope you're enjoying it. Please let us know what series you want to hear, and we'll cater to your needs, because I never thought we'd have German listeners, and we do.
Hopefully they're not listening to it just to figure out what English. It's like, for immersion in English, listen to random podcasts.
Right. Yeah.
This is not the one to listen to learn how to speak.
Not to speak
understand English. Me no understand English wells.
Right. You probably understand it more than we do. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, we got some good episodes coming up, so we look forward to hearing some feedback, and we look forward to reviewing some other issues. I always say issues with the little spike up. I'm not sure why. It's a character trait of mine.
Well, we all have issues, don't we?
Yeah, we all have issues. So, and this is why I love comics, this is Andy.
And this is Mike.
And we will talk to you later. As always, thanks to Thunder Chicken for letting me use their music. Go check them out on Spotify.
normally it's 6-issue series, 3-issue series, 4-issue series, 12-issue series if it's a really long series. But 7? That just seems like such an odd number.